Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second coffee corner. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to do our second coffee corner today. My name is Peter van den Bergen, and I'll be the moderator of today's presentation. Please note, small important point, that we will record this session and post it later on YouTube. The presentation will be followed by a Q&A section where you can or where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions, but please do ask questions also during the presentation. If the topic won't appear later on in the presentation, I'll ask the question directly to our speaker of today. The subject of today will be why your hiring strategy can't do without a marketplace anymore. This is a very interesting topic, and this interesting topic will be presented today by Christophe van Gijsel. Welcome, Christophe.
Thank you, Peter.
Christophe will give us some interesting facts and details about the Connect Expertise and Marketplace. How does it work? Who's on it? And what are the advantages of the using it? Now, let's hear a bit more about you, Christophe. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, Peter. Maybe I'll shortly introduce myself just from what I do in my spare time. Then I'll dive into my professional life a little bit. So in my spare time, I'm a football player. So and in the amateur level, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And what I also like doing is go and hike. So trip to Austria is really something that I like doing. So hiking, traveling, doing a road trip, etc. is something that I like doing. And that's a little bit on who is Christophe van Gijsel besides work.
Okay, very sporty.
Very sporty indeed. Also tennis and the padel hype since COVID. Everyone was starting to play padel, and it's also something that I started doing. So very sporty indeed, always busy doing stuff. And of course, with my work, I have a really full life.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
And speaking about your work, you're working for Connecting Expertise?
Yes, indeed. So I'm working as a sales manager at Connecting Expertise. And maybe it's already time to introduce a little bit our company, who we are as a company. So looking at Connecting Expertise, we're already 17 years running in Belgium, and also some international clients that we have. And what we basically do is we help clients in finding talent by putting technology in. So finding talent, but also in managing the talent, because we see that there are a lot of challenges that companies have in finding the talent, looking at the war on talent that there is, and it's really raging right now. So today we have about 200 clients that we help in finding talent, that we help in creating more time to do other stuff than administration by putting in technology.
Wow, great. So 200 clients, you say?
Yes.
That's quite a lot.
Yes, indeed. As you can see, we have some clients across different sectors. So it's not that you need to have a certain amount of externals to have access to our tooling or to use it. So we have some companies, as you can see on the slide deck, that have thousands of external people, like the Flemish government, for example, who have a lot of external people. But we also have some companies that have smaller amounts of consultants, like BMW, for example, or like Yuzu, for example, who have 10, 20, 30 consultants that they have in the company. And most of the time it's in IT or it's in engineering part, because there is a talent shortage in these type of domains. And often clients that we're working with have also difficulties in finding these talents within engineering, within IT, but also in other departments.
Okay, so it's very diverse actually in general. So we've got big companies, there are smaller companies, but there are also companies in IT, but also companies in engineering.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So um,
And they all use the same platform? They all use the same way of working, or?
no, there are some different ways of working because it's normal that a big company with thousands of consultants have other processes in place and have other needs than a company who has 10, 20 consultants. But basically, it always starts from the same kind of tooling that we have. So as you can see here, we have a vendor management system where it all starts. So a vendor management system is it's kind of a web platform where you can go, where you can log in, and there it all starts. So what we basically do with bigger companies is we go look at their processes with the company and look for how are you really working today, and then we'll manage. Then we'll configure our tooling based on their needs. With smaller companies, we have some blueprints, some standardized environments that they can use, so they don't have implementation fees that needs to be paid, because for them they don't have the money to do that, and it's not necessary to do so. So looking at our tooling, you see 4 different models. So you see sourcing, you see contracting, you see tracking, you see paying. To explain to an example, it's always about finding. It starts with a vacancy to find an external contractor. So an external contractor could be a consultant, it could be a freelancer, it could be an interim worker, and it always starts with the vacancy, which is in the sourcing model. So this means that, for example, let's just say, as an example, we use the IT manager who is looking for a Java developer, for example.
Okay.
The IT manager creates the request in the tooling. It can go, but it's not necessary according to the process of the client. It goes to an approval flow. For example, the procurement manager needs to agree that the vacancy goes out to the market, that there is effectively someone who can be searched, that there is money to go and look for a consultant. At the moment, the procurement manager says it's okay. The vacancy goes out to the suppliers, and at the moment, a consultant or a freelancer is chosen by the IT manager, then the contractual model goes into place, which is basically all the information in the sourcing models goes into the contractual model, and there can be a contract creation directly with all the information that there was already inputted in the sourcing model, so you can save a lot of time. And you also have, which is kind of important, especially for companies who are working with hundreds of consultants, for example. They don't always are aware of the amount of contractors that they currently have at the moment. So in a contractor model, you can always see how many externals do I have, which is basically very important to know when you're going to do workforce planning for the next years. You need to know how many talents do I have within the organization, and it's really something that can help, especially for the bigger companies. Then at the moment the contract is created, then the consultant will have a timesheet entry that he will do. So the time he's working, he will put it in the system, and from there on, and he also can input his expense notes, etc. And from there on, the invoicing part, the paying part, as it said here, can be started. And everything starts here. With smaller companies, it's a little less complex. With bigger companies, it's a little bit more based on more custom based, with more reports based on their needs, more processes in place, more different processes. And with smaller clients, they can use it, and it's very easy. They some days, and then they can have access to this type of tooling.
Okay, perfect. So we can make it as complex as necessary,
Yeah,
but you can make it as easy as necessary as well.
yeah,
actually,
that's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfectly said.
It all flows through automatically. All the information that you type in or that you collect during the sourcing phase, you can reuse during the contracting phase
Yeah.
and the timesheeting phase and
Yeah.
so on.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
can basically reduce a lot of time in the administrative part and everything is measurable. It's also something that is not a nice to have, but is sometimes a must have to see why did we do something, why did we choose this type of consultant, what are the prices we are paying. It's really something that you want to know as a company. If you want to evolve in your hiring strategy, you need to know these type of things, and you need tooling to have insights in these type of things.
Okay, perfect. And so we've got the Connect Expertise website, the use of Connect Expertise, but what is the connection about the real day-to-day business nowadays? What do we see? What's happening on the markets?
Yeah. I think everybody knows it and everybody is talking about it, but there is a war on talent who is really putting the end clients, so the organizations in a difficult situation because they have a lot of projects that they're having. Looking at the financial sector, for example, they're all basically doing the same at this moment, which is digitalization, and they all need the same experts. And looking at IT, for example, it's really, there are not a lot of IT profiles on the market at this moment, and it's hard to find the talent, and if they don't find the talent, their projects are having delays, which is really something that you want to avoid as an IT manager or as an engineering manager or any type of manager that has vision and that has goals within the company that he needs to reach, because his job is, it's not on the line, but it's important for his job to that he has the people to
get the job done.
To get the job done, indeed, yes. So that's something that we see. What we also see is that the staffing organizations, so the organizations that help companies finding the talent, also have issues in finding the talent, which is kind of a problem because what these type of organizations are doing at this moment, they're choosing for which client they will be working. So this means that, for example, the staffing organizations are choosing companies that are paying more for consultants than companies that are paying less or that are having strong negotiation processes. So these type of organizations kind of have a self-creation of their talent shortages because of the fact that staffing organizations haven't the time and haven't the capabilities of finding talent for every type of potential customer. So they can choose now, and that's why a lot of clients that can't find talent anymore, and sometimes it's a little bit their own fault, a little bit self-creation that they do, and self-creation, it can be, like I said, the prices that are being paid, but also looking at contracts, the type of contracts that you're willing to work with. Some clients choose not to work with externals. If you choose not to work with externals, it will be really hard to have access to the talent that you want, because there are a lot of freelancers. Freelancers is a booming business. People want to work for themselves. Especially when you look at the young graduates these days, they all want to work for their own and have some freedom. And yeah, you need to adapt to that as an organization.
And when you don't use this pool of talent, this pool of people, you eliminate already a lot of potential talent in your organization. Of course, when you're not working with these freelancers, with this temporary labor in general, then you just don't use a big part of the market right now.
Yeah, indeed. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about self-creation of talent shortage. So there is a war on talent. It's no denying. But due to the fact there's a war on talent, you can also create your own talent shortage. And looking at the Netherlands, for example, they're a little bit more adapted to working with freelancers, with the ZZP'ers as they call it. And they have a little bit of a head start looking at Belgium, for example. So they are some years ahead of us in working with externals. But you see over the years, so I'm working 3 years for Connecting Expertise now. I see that this vision is also changing with companies, that they are more aware of we need to work with different type of contracts to have access to the talent that we want. Because if we don't have access to the talent, we cannot grow further as an organization, and you need to be aware of that as a company.
Certainly.
So you need to have technology to do so, basically. You need to have technology like talent pool solution, or marketplaces that can help you in finding the talent directly, instead of just working with.
Because you're telling us that everyone needs actually tooling, everyone needs like a marketplace and so on. But what is the current process that most of the companies that are not using technology are working with?
Yeah, I have a really good slide to explain this. So most of the time, what a customer does is he chooses some bigger suppliers, staffing firms most of the time, that can help him with finding the talent. So looking at the slides, you can see that customer will be working with supplier 1, supplier 2, supplier 3, which are most of the time the biggest suppliers who have a big network behind them to help them finding the talent. So what will happen is customer has a request or a vacancy, and he sends it out to these type of suppliers. What these suppliers will do, they look at their candidates that are available. So the candidates that are on the bench, so the consultants that they have. Most of the time, they won't have any consultant that is available to do this project. So what will happen next? The supplier will go, and in this case, supplier 1 will go to the subcontractor, which is a partner of the supplier that he works with to help them find the talent. And what he will do is basically the same. He will look, do I have someone available within the organization as a consultant to do this type of appointment, or do I have a freelancer that I know that is available, that I can propose to the client. And looking at this type of processes, you can, as you can see, every time that a firm needs to start a search to a candidate, it takes some time. So you create a longer fill-in rate, but also looking at the margins, every time that there is a company involved, the end client needs to pay more, and the fees are within 10 to 30% of margin that every company takes. So I've already seen clients that are paying €1,000, and the freelancer in this case is maybe getting €500 a day, which is really something that you want to avoid as a company. And as of today, with the inflation, etc., it's something that you probably don't have the money for to get in processes like this. So that's really something that we see, and which is more and more of a problem for companies.
Yeah, can believe that. Certainly. And inflation also there important. If you can decrease your costs, but then the real question is, of course, how? How can we decrease this chain? How can we decrease this lead time? How can we decrease the costs we need to spend on our temporary workers?
Yeah, okay. But maybe it's good that I just explain how a marketplace is working, and then I'll go a little bit more into the details. So a marketplace, basically what it does is you have a request, a vacancy, and instead of putting it to your existing known suppliers that you're already working with, you send it out to the whole marketplace, the market of freelancers, the market of consultancy firms. So we have a marketplace at Connecting Expertise which has grown due to the fact that we have 17-year experience. And every time that a client is onboarded with us, he will communicate with his suppliers via the tooling of Connecting Expertise. So the supplier needs to register himself.
Mm-hmm.
He can do this for free because it's a client-funded system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way the marketplace has been growing over the 17 years that we are existing. And what it basically does is you have a vacancy, you send it out to the suppliers, and all the suppliers that are specialized in this type of role will have access to this vacancy. And they can decide whether or not to propose candidates, if they have someone available or not. They can propose candidates directly to the customer. And then
Without the extra step, actually.
without the extra step,
Yeah.
indeed. Because what happens if you're looking at smaller companies normally won't have the power to work with the very big, smaller staffing firms won't have the power to work with the really big companies, because they want a network, they want to see how big is your database. So they need to work via the bigger suppliers to have access to this request. So they are obliged to do so. So while working with a marketplace, they can directly, so the smaller staffing firm, an agency, for example, who is a specialist in some niche profiles, they can propose their candidate directly to the end client, which
Okay.
has, of course, some benefits. Looking at the costs, it's normal when you're using a marketplace and a smaller company can directly propose a candidate, you cut the margins. Cutting margins will mean 10 to 30% less costs on the day rates, because looking at consultancy contracts, most of the time they're between 1 and 3 years running. So if you can cut 10 to 30% on the day rates of a consultant, that's a nice saving, I guess. But also, if you're using a marketplace, and on this marketplace today, I didn't mention earlier, but on this marketplace today, we have 4,000 suppliers.
Ooh,
That's
a lot,
indeed. That are working on, that can be working on the requests. We have some freelancers, some thousands of freelancers, and this type of it creates competition. It's normal, but it's different than when you're working with 2 to 3 suppliers. The supplier knows that he can have a higher rate than when he is working via a marketplace, because he knows that he is in competition with the rest of the market. And that's also something that reduces the cost, just the competition part. But also, most of the time, for a hiring manager, savings or pricing is not the most important factor for him. The most important factor for him, or I want to have candidates, I want to have more candidates, because he doesn't want that, like I said earlier, he doesn't want that his project have delays, and therefore he needs to have candidates as soon as possible, and enough candidates, so he has the option to choose the best fit for his organization, because sometimes you get 1 or 2 good candidates, but there also is a cultural fit that needs to be looked into. And
yeah, that's actually the real problem, the war on talent. And so there are fewer candidates and the rates are high. So actually, when I hear you speaking what you're saying, and you can actually attack these both issues, attack these both problems with the Connecting Expertise and marketplace.
yes, indeed. So basically, in short, what you will reach when using a marketplace, you will have more access. You will reach the suppliers that have available consultants, and because of the fact that they have available consultants, you will have a lower pricing, because someone is on their bench and they need to be off the bench because it's a cost for them.
Mm.
But they are looking for an assignment, they're not finding it. But the client is looking for a consultant, but they are not finding the smaller companies because it's a lot of work to do so.
Mhm.
They need to create an RFP. Looking at big companies, they need to create RFPs, and it's a lot of work to do so and to manage and to find these suppliers. So with a marketplace, you can contact them directly at any time, at any moment, and you just put your request to the market and you wait. You will get really soon. You will get some candidates.
Okay. And what is like the, let's say, the filling rate or of a connected expertise on marketplace?
Yeah, yeah. I have some statistics that I can show. What we did here is we have companies we have clients that are using our tooling to send out a request to their existing partners, which is the preferred suppliers, which is the non-marketplace requests. And we have some clients that are using that are just using the marketplace, which is the marketplace request, which is the left side. We split them, and as we can see, looking at the fill rate on the marketplace, you can see that it's around 95% of the vacancies are filled in looking at marketplace requests, and looking at the non-marketplace requests, so the companies that are just working with their existing supplier base, we see that it's a little bit lower. It's around 75% the fill rate. And these companies that are doing this are the companies like ENG, who are just working with preferred suppliers and have put a lot of time in the perfect hiring strategy and the perfect pool of suppliers.
With their preferred suppliers,
With their
actually.
preferred suppliers, but still, you can see that they don't fill in every vacancy. And it's normal because 10, 15, 20, 50 suppliers, they can't compete with the whole market, and it's normal. And that's what we see in these statistics.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
But then maybe a bit strange question, but when you have that many, when you have got a vacancy, but that many candidates, isn't it difficult to compare them, to look deeper into their classifications and to know which one is a perfect match for our company?
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I hear a lot when a client is a little bit, or potential client is afraid of getting too much inflow of candidates, because what he doesn't want to do is screen 30 CVs, for example. But basically, what we see is that normally a candidate will, a vacancy will not get 30 CVs. And because of the fact that the marketplace is combined with the vendor management system, we have some visuals that show how you can screen, and it's very easy. You create a request, you demand some skills to the supplier, and the supplier needs to answer on these skills. So what normally happens in a normal way of working without technology is that the client will create a job description. He will send it out to his existing suppliers via mail. The supplier will get the job description. He will read it and say, oh, okay, I have someone here that is kind of a match, but not really matching all the boxes. But I just send out the CV and let's see, maybe I'll win, maybe I do not win. For the hiring manager, he gets the CV, he needs to open the CV, he needs to look into the CV, and after 10 minutes he discovers it's not the candidate that I was looking for, because he doesn't have the skill that was really required. And on the marketplace and in the mechanism of the vendor management system, you can demand skills and you will have directly access to, you can have a direct view on what candidate is probably a good match and is worth time spending looking into the CV further. So as you can see here, here you have two candidates that you got, and you can directly see, okay, there's a matching score, and if you want, you can click further onto a candidate, and then you will see some colors, and these colors are you see dark green, which means the candidate is more experienced in this type of skill than requested. You have the green, the light green, which is he's a fit, it's perfect, perfect fit. And then you have orange, which means it's not, he doesn't have the required skill. But here you can see, as a hiring manager, you can directly see which, if it's a candidate that is worth spending more time in looking into it, and you can really screen very fast here, because you don't need to open every CV and read every CV, because it can be time wasting if you need to open and screen 15 CVs, for example. And that's not something that a CIO or an IT manager or an engineering manager or a procurement manager has time for.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
So actually, it's quite easy to, for example, start based on price and then based on quality with the skills you add on the request or on the vacancy. You can actually immediately see if the candidate, based on the skills and based on the rate they propose, is a fit for a company. And then afterwards, you can look deeper into the CV, or you can demand for a request or something like that to an interview, to do an interview, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But actually, your shortlisting of your candidates can be done quite easily.
Yeah, that can be done really fast. So that's really an advantage for a hiring manager to have this type of solutions, to screen very fast which are the good candidates, which are the candidates that are wasting my time. And it's also a little bit, it's also better for a supplier will think twice before he is responding to the required skills, because he knows that this mechanism is also, he can be wasting the time of the client, and that's not something that you want to do as a supplier.
Certainly not, because it goes in two ways. When you propose a candidate who is just a junior, when you're looking for a meteor, he knows, well, based on these skills, actually he won't get through just because it's not good enough. But also vice versa, when you're proposing like a candidate who is actually senior, but they're only looking for a meteor, then is actually or she's actually over skilled, which isn't also a perfect match for this vacancy. So that is also working on both sides of the system. On the one side, we've got the supplier who really knows what type of candidate you're looking for, but on the other hand, you also got the checking mechanism on your side where you can check if this candidate fits the requests we send to the marketplace. Is that more or less the...
That's a good summary, I guess, for what I said. So, yeah.
Okay,
indeed.
Well, perfect. And, well, you told us that there are big companies, there are small companies, but do they all use the same principle of tooling, or how does this work in general?
I think that there are three types of companies on the market that we defined. You have the small and medium enterprises who will have 1 to 10 requests per year. But you will also have the mid-market companies who will have 30 to 50 requests, for example, a year. And then you will have the corporate level who will have hundreds of people that they are looking for each year. And for every type of client, we have some different way of working with a marketplace. Looking at the small and medium enterprises, we have a kind of a credit system, which means that you can buy a credit 1 2, 3. Depends on what you need. Let's say you need 3 candidates. So you buy just 3 credits, and with these 3 credits, you can create 3 requests on a standardized blueprint that we have. So you can log in onto the marketplace, you create a request, and you use these credits to have access to create the creation of these requests.
Okay.
And at the moment you find someone with the credit system, you found someone and the process stops. Then we have
So it's really sourcing actually, just the sourcing of the candidate, and then when you've got a candidate, you need to, you can onboard them internally in your organization.
Yes, indeed. So it's just the sourcing, because smaller companies won't have any problems, of most of the time you won't have any problems in the administration part of managing the contractor, because they are small teams, they know who is inside the organization, so they don't need the whole tooling. So they just need the sourcing because they want to find talents. Secondly, we have the mid-market clients, so the clients that are working with 10 to 50 externals, 10 to 100 externals, for example. What they don't want is to have an overflow of new suppliers, but because new suppliers needs to be created into the ERP systems. There is an administration process that needs to happen when creating a supplier, like the creation of a framework agreement, which can take some time, and most of the time it's a little bit urgent, and there isn't time to create a framework agreement, because the consultant needs to start at Monday, for example. And there, what happens a lot is that a mid-market organization will work with a broker. And what this means is that the client is using the sourcing model, the marketplace, and when he finds a consultant, then he says to us as a broker, because we do this stuff as a company, or a third-party broker, I found a candidate, you need to onboard this candidate, and the end client still have one supplier, and this is the broker. So all the new suppliers that he found on the marketplace will be behind the contract that the broker has. So the client has only one contractual relation, and it's with the broker, and behind that there are the consultants that are working for the end client.
So one SPOC, actually, one connection point,
Yes.
that's doing all of it. That's
Yeah.
doing all of it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then you've got the third option, I see.
Yeah. Then that is the license fee. Like I said earlier, the really big companies, they all have their own processes, and as a result, our solution needs to follow these type of processes. So this means that everything needs to be configured based on the process of the end client. So it takes more time, as you can see, to put these things in place. And most of the time, the client will use it independently, the software, and wants to work with a license fee that he knows I'm paying a fixed fee to use this type of tooling, and that's it.
It's a bit like you told us in the beginning of this session, when you are a smaller company, it's less configuration, but you've got direct sourcing, you've got direct access to the marketplace. When you're a bigger company, you can add your own process into the platform and then work based on a license, actually. And then we've got actually also the in-between option there, when you are not a small, not a big, but when you've got mostly help, when you need mostly help with new sourcing of candidates, but also with the contracting and everything that's behind it. So that's actually are the 3 options we've got at Connect Expertise today.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe just some, because what I often found is that clients or potential clients, they think this is something that is really complex using because it's a vendor management system and it's a tooling. And when they hear tooling, they're a little bit afraid, oh, not again, another software, which is an implementation time of a year and 2 years, and they don't want that. But it's not that complex as it looks, because you need to see it as an sort of an online environment. So at the moment you have a potential vacancy for a contractor or a consultant that you're looking for, you just go to instead of going to your mailbox, you just go to an online environment which is connecting expertise. You can log in there, you can create your vacancy or your request. Based on the request, you will get some candidates. You will screen them there because it goes really, really fast. And from there on, you decide which supplier or which consultant you will invite to an interview, and you choose your candidate. And if you want, you can go further into contract creation in the vendor management system, timesheets in the vendor management system, depending on what you need. But it can be really simple using the sourcing model and using the marketplace. It's not that complex as it looks. That's really something that that a client needs to know before going into this.
Okay, perfect. It's a bit of a wrong idea that's living the dream, or that's living in the minds today, but actually, yeah, it's not that complex in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, perfect. Then we're almost at the end, I think, of the presentation today. Thank you, Christophe. You can normally see now on the screen the get in touch details. If you have got any questions afterwards, when you're looking at this on YouTube or so on, you can also always contact Christophe. He will be happy to speak to you. And now, of course, it's your turn. Are there any questions? If there are any questions, please ask them on the Q&A section on the Zoom meeting. Just click on the chat and ask your question directly to us as the moderator. I've got already a first question, Christophe. One question, and I think it's a really good question, is I already have a very good collaboration with a couple of suppliers. Is it wise for me to work with the marketplace?
That's indeed a good question, and it's a question that I get a lot.
Okay.
Well, in my time as an account manager and a sales manager at Connecting Expertise, of course, if you're looking at companies and most of the time the mid-market organizations, it's normal that they want to work with their existing suppliers, because these suppliers, it's an advantage. They know what is needed for this type of company. They know what cultural fit they're looking for within the client's organization. So it's something that they will be doing. But at moments, these suppliers can't help you, because it will happen that these suppliers won't have the talents that you're looking for. Then you should have access to a marketplace or something else to help you in finding the talent. And not if you don't, for example, let's just say you have your preferred suppliers, and one moment your preferred supplier is saying, I just can't find someone, or it's already taking 4 or 5 weeks and you just didn't get any candidate. If you need to be searching on your own, to start a search on the market, and you don't have a tooling like a marketplace, it will cost you a lot of time in finding suppliers. You will need to have conversations with their account managers to see how are they working, why are they asking this type of prices. So it will take a lot of time if you need to look for it yourself. So it's always a good match, and that's always something that I, as an HR tech expert, something that I advise is you should be working with your preferred suppliers. Keep doing that, but you also need to be challenging them by using a marketplace to challenge their prices, to challenge their speed of the answer, and to have access to niche profiles that they can't find. So for me, it's a combination of both. The companies that are successful in finding candidates, or companies that are using different types of solutions, like their existing suppliers, a talent pool, or a marketplace, and it's an end story. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't use different pools where you aren't restricted to one? Indeed, that's correct. I've got a second question. What kind of profiles can I find on the marketplace? For example, is it only IT or engineering, as you said, or yeah, in general, what kind of profiles can you find on the marketplace?
Again, a good question. Every type of profile you can find on the marketplace, but it needs to be said that because of the fact that there is a higher scarcity in IT and in engineering, there are more suppliers within engineering, IT, than in procurement supply chain. But if you look at the percentages, for example, we have more than 4,000 suppliers. Let's just say that 50% are in IT, and 20-30% are in engineering, and the other 20% are in procurement, HR, supply chain, and everything that is out there, life sciences. So if you're looking for someone, you will find it on the marketplace, but you will get probably more candidates within IT than you will get in HR. But there are a lot of HR companies also on that are selling HR profiles to clients on our marketplace.
Okay, perfect. I've got one more question for now. If there are other questions, please do ask. Let's say I find a profile through the marketplace. Will that be much cheaper than find it on the old way? And we already actually discussed it a bit during the presentation. So actually, will it be cheaper to work with the marketplace or not? It's actually
Normally, it would be because of, like I said, there's a market competition that plays. So staffing firms that are working via marketplace, they will price sharper, because basically what an account manager does, that is working for a consultancy firm, a staffing company, if he goes into a negotiation in a normal process where there are 4 to 5 suppliers, he will always start with a price that is 10% higher, so we can have still some negotiation. But when you're working on a marketplace, you know that you will be screened based on the skills and based on the pricing. And that's the first part. And afterwards, you can come for an interview. So you need to have your sharpest pricing directly. So that's one part. The other part is, of course, that the cutting of the margins that there are, so that small companies have directly access to your requests. So that's basically the reason why you will have a lower day rate. But of course, it's up to the client to choose which consultant that he takes. It could be that there's a great consultant and is a little bit more expensive, and it's up to the client whether or not pricing is important or not. So we cannot guarantee it, but we see that based on all the offerings on the CVs that we get on the marketplace, that the pricing are 10 to 15% lower than working in the traditional way.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for your answers. I see for now that there are no more other questions. So thank you everyone at home as well, or at the office, to joining us today. Thank you very much for your participation. You'll receive a mail shortly after this coffee corner where we would like you to ask to fill in some feedback. It's important for us to know what you thought of the market of the coffee corner today, and to give us some feedback on how we can improve in the future. Something important as well to mention is that our next coffee corner will be the 28th of January. Here will Bruno Rossels talk us through the use of a vendor management system in the public market, in the public sector. If you're interested in that, please also join us for this coffee corner. And until then, I'll hope you recheck this coffee corner on YouTube later on. If you're doing it right now, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye bye.